Good morning. I would like to welcome everyone to the February 29th, 2024 California High-Speed Rail Authority Board of Directors meeting. At this time, we would like to call the meeting to order and inform you that the Board of Directors will now enter closed session in the administrative building and will return to building number 5 in approximately 1 hour around 10 a.m. Once the board members return, we will take roll and hear all items on the February 29th agenda before moving to the tour of the train interior white mock-ups and station concepts located behind me. If you are here in person and would like to provide public comment when our regular board meeting begins, you can prepare now by completing a green card for general public comment or a blue card for public comment on the 2024 draft business plan and submitting it to a staff member. For those wishing to provide public comment on Zoom, once our board members have returned, we will call on you by asking you to please raise your hand using the application at the bottom of your screen. Thank you. We will reconvene once the board members have returned from closed session.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the continuation of the February 29th board meeting for the California High-Speed Rail Authority. Why don't we start this way? First, if we can ask the secretary to call the roll.
Director Schenk. Here. Chair Richards.
Here.
Director Camacho.
Here.
Vice Chair Miller.
Here.
Assemblymember Arambula. Director Perea.
Here.
Director Gilmetti. Director Escutia.
Here.
Director Williams.
Here.
Senator Gonzalez. Director Cohen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. First, can we bring a flag up on the screen? We can, okay. If we could do so, okay. If I could ask our vice chair to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please address the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we start the agenda and to go to public comment, I would like to just initially announce that the board just completed a closed session. We have nothing to report at this time. So moving to public comment, I'll ask now our secretary to advise those people here with us today this morning, as well as those who are joining us on Zoom, how you can address this board. Alice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello. Before we begin public comment on the agenda items besides agenda item 3, the draft 2024 business plan for the California High-Speed Rail Authority Board of Directors meeting, I would like to review some important information. For members of the public who have joined us in person and wish to provide public comment, you will be called on in the order we received your card. If you are joining the meeting via Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please use the raise your hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. If you are dialing in by phone, pressing the number 2 will raise your hand and put you in our queue. Speakers will be called on in the order their hands are raised. Once you are in the queue and your name is called, please click the prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. If you are joining by phone, we will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you will hear a message that your phone is being unmuted. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to speak. I will notify you when you have 15 seconds remaining. When it is your turn to speak, please slowly and clearly say your first and last name, and if applicable, state the organization you are representing. Mr. Chair, we are going to start with Mayor Jerry Dyer.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning, Chair. Just want to make my
Mayor Dyer.
Can you hear
Maybe
me?
we can move on, and if somebody could check to see if he's still with us. I know he had
He's
something else
on.
he had to go to.
He's on.
Is he on now?
Yeah.
Mayor Dyer, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Can you hear me? I show unmuted.
Okay.
Unmute. Mayor Dyer, can you please unmute your application?
I. Where's that?
No, that's their webinar.
Nope, I'm unmuted.
Good morning, Mayor Dyer.
Can you hear me, Tom?
Yes.
Yes, we hear you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what the problem was. So thank you. I know I only got 51 seconds left now.
No, we're going to give you another 2 minutes.
All right, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to make a few comments, some positive, some of concern, but I continue to be a huge fan of high-speed rail. I know it's going to be a game changer for the Valley and for Fresno. Thankful we're going to have the first high-speed rail station in the nation here in downtown Fresno. But I do believe it's important to share the concerns that we have locally, as expressed by folks downtown Fresno as well as Chinatown, of the length of time of some of our road closures that we've had, and some of those for 8 years. And we have another one now that's about 9 months behind schedule that, quite frankly, I stuck my neck out as a mayor to give authorization to have that street closed, with the assurance that we would not have delays, and now we're 9 months behind. So that is definitely a concern. And the other comments I have is it's been brought to my attention that the design of the high-speed rail station tentatively is not set to extend over into the Chinatown area in terms of the pedestrian bridge. And I think that is critical in reconnecting a community that oftentimes has been forgotten and left behind. So hopeful that is in error. And maybe I've gotten bad information. And then the second thing is on the design that the canopy of that pedestrian bridge is not included. And I think, as you know, Chair, with the heat that we have in Fresno, it is critical that we have a canopy that that covers that pedestrian bridge. So again, I just wanted to bring those to your attention, as well as the fact that we had a sewer collapse in Fresno that cost the city $1.6 million to relocate some people. And now I'm told high-speed rail is denying it was as a result of their work. So those are my comments today.
Thank you, Mayor, and we will have our staff in touch with your office to set up a meeting on all three of these items. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay. We will begin with in-person speakers. Our first speaker is Frank Quintero.
Good morning, Chairman and Board.
Good
First
morning.
of all, happy leap year or happy leap day. My name's Frank Quintero. I'm the Deputy City Manager for the City of Merced. Lots has happened between high-speed rail staff and the City of Merced. We've entered into 2 agreements and held a design workshop in December. We understand the design workshop or the design of the station is a work in progress. And we are a multimodal station where we have 3 trains coming into 1 location. And for us, we see that as a major economic catalyst. We enjoy collaborating, but we want to emphasize we are concerned about pedestrian access, growing Merced in the central part, so bridges and really good access to the site. And then when people arrive to the station, where do they go? How do they get there? And these are all things I know we'll be working out with the high-speed rail staff. So just want to say thank you, and we look forward to your partnership and cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, David Schwagel.
Good morning, Mr. Schwagel.
Good morning, David Schwagel, with 3 game changers, 2 history, actually one of them is history, 2 are forthcoming. The one that's history is the synergy between Dan Richard and the I Will Ride High Speed Rail Alliance out of UC Merced. There was just something magical about that synergy that took place at the February 2012 board meeting in downtown Sacramento. If you feel a need to get a dose of encouragement, by all means, go back to that February 2012 board meeting. Second, in the future, Brightline West is going to break ground and start construction sooner rather than later. It would be great to generate considerable synergy between both the California system and the Brightline system, especially on the Palmdale to Burbank section, which is regarded by many as the engineering and public relations challenge of the century. Third, and finally, there is the U.S. High-Speed Rail Association Conference in Washington, D.C., May 14th through 15th. I encourage everyone to attend as the state budget permits. And I understand that the state budget is rather tight this time of year, as well as in general. But if anyone is able to make the journey, I see that Brian Kelly is on the agenda, as is Melissa Figueroa. If there's a way we can send a couple more people there, that would be great. And certainly board members are highly encouraged to attend. I personally have participated in every single West Coast U.S. High-Speed Rail Conference, and they are all absolutely amazing.
15 seconds.
And I have never seen such an impressive lineup of speakers as I saw last year. And this year's conference promises to be even better. www.ushsr.com will give you more information. Thank you.
Next up, Steve Roberts.
Good morning, Mr. Roberts.
Good morning, Chair Richards and the board. I'm Steve Roberts. I'm the president of the Rail Passenger Association of California and Nevada. On behalf of the members of RailPAC, I would like to acknowledge the perseverance and skill of CEO Brian Kelly in bringing together his team to navigate the political, managerial, and financial challenges the authority faced over the past 6 years. In overcoming these challenges, Mr. Kelly and his team developed strategies and governance policies that put California high-speed rail on a defined path to success. So thank you, Mr. Kelly, for your service. And our organization would like to present you with this nice little plaque.
Next, John Hernandez.
Good morning, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Board. My name is John Hernandez, and I'm here representing Hernandez Kern Associates. HKA was awarded its first contract with California High-Speed Rail 1365 in 2014 to provide right-of-way and engineering surveying services. It was originally awarded at $3.2 million for 3 years, and due to our excellent relationship with HSR staff and numerous authority contract managers, also known as ACMs, this contract was expanded to 9 years and increased to $12.5 million. This is about a 400% increase in value. During this time, HKA has worked with several ACMs and has never had a problem with any of them. Obviously, for this contract to be successful and for our firm to be successful, our firm must therefore be capable of preparing invoices, weekly and monthly management reports, producing a variety of maps, and performing field surveying in a timely and competent manner. HK has worked closely with Ben Camarena, Robert Rosas, David Qualser, Paul Enstrom, Wen Von Jezda, and Gladys Guzman. The administration of HKA's contract over these 9 years was consistent and equitable due to each ACM adhering to the HSR policies and procedures. HKA turned in monthly and invoices without dispute on any labor charges. From 2014 to today, HKA has retained 4 key staff members at our firm. This is something that most A&E firms cannot claim. In the past 10 years, our leadership, quality of work, and method of operation has not changed, and we are a capable and competent firm and produce a high-quality work product. In 2023, HKA won HSR 22, 44, and 45 contracts as being the most qualified firm. The contract administration of these 2 contracts is unlike anything we've ever seen in our 35 years of business. Unlike HSR 1365, HKA has been denied payment on every single invoice and has been denied payments and has had every single invoice disputed. HKA has gone 95 days without payment of $460,000. The only difference between HSR 1365 and these 2 new contracts is the addition of a new HSR ACM and a supervisor. HKA is a minority and woman-owned business, and I believe is protected under Title 6. Thank you.
Next up, Richard Hernandez.
Good morning, Board and Chairman. My name is Richard Hernandez. I represent Hernandez Cruden Associates. Hernandez Cruden Associates is the prime contractor in HSR 22-44 and HSR 2245 contracts. HKA is a micro small business, woman and minority owned, and is under the protected class of Title VI. I am here to beg you for intervention and protecting our firm from bankruptcy due to the attack on our firm by 2 HSR staff members. Without your help, HKA will be bankrupt, as we have been operating at a monetary loss each month and with no sight in end. It is our belief that this is willful, malicious, and on purpose with that goal. We had a handout, but we didn't get an answer to that handed out. The handout shows that HKA was denied payment for $460,000 for a period of 95 days. This is a lot of money for a small business, not to have operating capital. This was the first fast kill attempt by HKA staff, HSR staff to bankrupt us. Work products and deliveries were never an issue. They were all accepted and paid and delivered on time. The second approach is a slow kill approach, with every invoice being disputed so that HK has an operating loss of roughly 22%, which is amazing. The third approach is that HK staff now is being required to bid on each assigned task. Delivery within a cap on a cost plus fixed fee contract. This is a contract change order without any consideration of financial impact on HKA. No other prime A&E firm on a professional service contract, professional service cost plus fixed fee contract is being treated as HK staff is currently treating us in this manner. This includes Odell Engineering, who has an identical contract as ours between HK and Odell. And I believe this is a Title VI violation and requires your prompt protection. I beg you to intervene, because this is going to put Hernandez Cruden Associates out of business. And I'm still a rail believer. I want it to be built. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. I understand that management perhaps has been in discussions, and we'll ask management to advise the board at our upcoming meeting.
If not sooner, Mr. Chairman.
Sooner, Mr. Chairman.
We're happy to do that. Can you do that in your CEO report today? It'll be taken up in our CEO report today.
Mr. Chair, now we will move to the Zoom participants. Once again, if you are joining the meeting via Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please use the raise your hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. Or if you are dialing in by phone, press the number 2. This will raise your hand and put you into our queue. Speakers will be called on in the order their hands are raised. Once you are in the queue and your name is called, please click the prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. If you are joining by phone, we will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you will hear a message that your phone is being unmuted. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to speak. I will notify you when you have 15 seconds remaining. When it is your turn to speak, please slowly and clearly say your first and last name, and if applicable, state the organization you are representing. Mr. Chairman, our first speaker is Mayor Karen Go.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning, Chair Richards and members of the board. I'm Karen Go, Mayor of the City of Bakersfield, California's 9th largest city, where we feed and power the world. Our city has been hard at work preparing for the construction of a world-class. Is there an issue? Our city has been hard at work preparing for the construction of a world-class high-speed rail station. We look forward to major architectural and aesthetic elements completed on day 1 of ridership. Our city envisions the station and the surrounding area as a destination and an economic hub with retail, restaurants, office space, and housing. Our efforts have been driven by community engagement with residents who have long formed the transformation of our downtown into a multimodal corridor that will revitalize our communities. Thank you to the authority for commissioning a study and working with both the City of Bakersfield and Caltrans to conceptualize a conversion of State Route 204 using the highways to boulevards concept. This reimagined state route would connect one of the city's most disadvantaged neighborhoods and businesses to one of the nation's most burgeoning downtown and the station. A truly multimodal state route would also help address traffic safety in a city that's working hard to reduce its traffic fatality rates. An exciting aspect of this project is the opportunity for an increase in transit service and usage. The city is exploring a potential partnership with Golden Empire Transit to fund transit service improvements that will facilitate the movement of people from Southeast Bakersfield to the high-speed rail station. We want to uplift the need for another round of community engagement on these concepts. The authority worked hard on a station plan in 2018, but it's important that as these concepts and designs are released, that community members have another opportunity to comment. Thank you to the High Speed Rail Authority staff for working hand in hand with the city and engaging the community. I look forward to further discussions and bringing a world-class, state-of-the-art high-speed rail station to the city of Bakersfield. Thank you again, Chair Richards and members of your board for your time.
Thank you, Mayor, and we look forward to continuing working with your great city of Bakersfield.
Next up, Jason Waters.
Good morning, board. Jason Waters, the Deputy City Manager from the City of Hanford. Just wanted to take a quick moment to comment on item 5 and express the city's appreciation for the outreach that has taken place so far as it relates to the Kings Tulare Station planning efforts. High-speed rail staff have done a really fantastic job at keeping us informed and involved in the process. They've always been very, responsive when we have questions, comments, or concerns. Our hope is that this coordination will continue. The city is currently in the early stages of determining the types of land use that will make sense around the station area. And we recognize this will be a joint effort between several partners, including high-speed rail. We do want to make sure that the city's future plans near the station take into consideration high-speed rail's plans and vice versa. And that will require a significant amount of coordination between the city and high-speed rail. I am happy to see that the design and scope of the Kings Tulare Station is beginning to materialize, because that will help make this coordination effort much easier. We look forward to continued coordination. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, Marvin.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and board members. My name is Marvin Norman. I'm a San Bernardino resident, and I come in today just to, first of all, congratulations again to CEO Kelly on the work that you've done in getting the project to this point. And the challenge to the rest of the board is to, I know we're working on finishing the phase 1 and getting that all shovel ready, but I really want to express the importance of, once phase 1 is done, to start the work on phase 2 immediately. And we need to get that message to the legislator and to all other relevant partners, because a lot of projects are happening both in Northern California, but especially here in Southern California, which would be part of, or which could rely on, or which could be helpful or coordinate with high-speed rail, which would really be helped furthered by getting more coordination and by the high-speed rail phase 2 plans getting underway as soon as possible, so that as work is done in our region, and that it is work that can be complementary to future high-speed rail expansion, not work that would have to be undone or create a roadblock. And additionally, we could use it to continue just generally to keep people familiar with the project, because a lot of people are, as here in San Bernardino with Bright Line West coming, a lot of people are asking, wait, I thought the state was good thing Brightline is doing it because the state has not been able to build their project, and I thought that got approved years ago. And generally, people will think they're the same project, and they're not the same project, which we all know. But it would help to get some actual work going on the segment and that will be passing through our region, as well as segments that would potentially support work beyond, to say, Arizona and other places. So once again, thank you, and stress the importance that the authority needs to start working on phase 2 as soon as phase 1 is done. Prep work is done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, participant with the name CSEE. Morning.
Good morning, and thank you for taking my comment. Mr. Chair, members of the authority, and Mr. Kelly, my name is C. Lee, CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Merced County, serving about 1,500 kids and families every year. Our center is located at the Macomb Youth Center, which is 1 block east of the proposed location for the high-speed rail station. For the last 20 years, we have provided programs and services at this location. And as we are excited and in support of the high-speed rail, as well as the expansion of ACE and Amtrak, we hope that we can get your support in relocating our facility in the next, to continue serving our young people in the next generation to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Patricia Ramos Anderson.
Hello. My name is Patricia Ramos Anderson. I'm the president of LULAC. I came from San Jose, but we are organized in Merced County as well as all the way down to Coalinga, working with other chapters. The accessibility of high-speed rail was a dream. It became a dream that people would have opportunities for employment, for transportation, and getting around and getting to address their needs. But the dream has been slipping away because originally when it was being set up in the Merced County area in Santanella, one of the key issues that we brought up was rural communities. How will they be impacted? How are they going to benefit? And will they be able to have employment and training so they can be part of this dream, but also part of this whole process and usage? Currently, the dream is dying in the rural communities. They still have the challenges of the counties providing them. Up until 2-3 years ago, we were able to get public transportation. Unheard of. We're the gateway to Silicon Valley. The light speed train is very important to us because it helps us get around up north, down south, and central into also Merced County. But also the issue of jobs. Originally, they were going to have a station that was buildings for repairing the trains. People were looking forward to that for employment. That all of a sudden had disappeared. And we need to remember that you're not giving the people hope anymore. We're becoming hopeless. The communities are not getting the needs to address their transportation at the state level, but the ones that are the same ones that already have accessibility to public transit, have vehicles, are not the working poor as much as we have here in Merced County in the west side, but still everyone should have that access, and it's being made difficult. We need to address it, and we look forward to working with you statewide as well as in the region here. Don't leave us behind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Roland.
Good morning, Chair Richards, board members. Thank you for the opportunity. Roland Brand, San Jose. I would like to refer you to slide 5 of the station concept presentation. There are 2 issues on that slide. The first one is the platform length, which shows 1,400 feet for phase 1, but which is compatible with every other high-speed rail platform in the world, including Brightline West, but only 800 feet for the Central Valley section. The other issue with slide 5 is the 4-foot platform height, which is not compatible with Caltrain, Metrolink, Amtrak, or any other operator in California. In closing, I would recommend that you refer to the February 7th, 2017 letter from the High Speed Rail Peer Review Group to the legislature, which reads as follows. We've recommended in past letters that the authority consider adopting bi-level trains from the outset because the loading platform level would be consistent with the lower level used by Caltrain and Metrolink and ACE if they are joint operations in the future. In our discussion, the authority indicated that they will consider input from the new system operator. And in closing, they say the last sentence is, we recommend that this issue be addressed carefully before the High Speed Rail Authority commits itself to a rolling stock fleet design. Thank you.
Next up, Hassan.
Yeah, I just want to say something really quickly. I'm not gonna take a lot of time. Congrats to the board and the CEO on getting approved for the federal state partnership grant. But I want to make something clear. The federal government is not going to pay for all of this. And we have to get moving to get the state to pay their share and to be able to either reallocate some of the gas tax into the project or push for more funding. For example, like extending the capital trade fund. We have to have the state push more money into the project, and instead of just begging the federal government for more money. Good job on getting some money from the federal government, but we need the state to step up. And I urge the board to start having these discussions as soon as possible with the state government. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Alejandro Carrillo.
Good morning, board members, and thank you for this opportunity to provide public comment. I'm a resident, my name is Alejandro Carrillo, and I am a resident of Merced, in Merced County, here in the Central Valley. My concern is that currently the training center is located in Selma, and as you're looking at expanding north, there needs to be an opportunity for North Valley residents to access the jobs. And the only way that they're being accessed is through this training center that's located in Selma, which is a far distance, is not accessible to residents. So please consider opening up a center or partnering up with the local unions or even colleges to provide these opportunities to our community. And the second part is having an opportunity for community to provide input. Currently, the station, as you heard earlier from another, from Sealy, the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club, is one of the centers that's being affected by the station's location, as well as the senior community center. There needs to be an opportunity to provide input and some sort of working partnership to find a new location for both of these very crucial community centers in Merced. And lastly, there's a proposed, I don't know if it's through high-speed rail or through the Mitzi project, but there's a proposed train maintenance station, some sort of yard that's being proposed that will impact both another community center, the Lao Family Community Center, as well as a senior living. So there needs to be an opportunity for a community to come together with high-speed rail. It's great that it's coming. It provides jobs and it provides moving us closer to that green economy. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, we have no other attendees that would like to provide public comment.
All right, thank you, Ms. Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move on to our agenda item number 2. That is the approval of the January 18th board meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Director Schenk? Chair Richards?
Yes.
Director Camacho? Vice Chair Miller?
Yes.
Assemblymember Arambula? Oh, excuse me. Director Perea?
Yes.
Director Gilmetti? Director Escutia?
I abstain as I was not present at that meeting.
Director Williams,
Aye.
Director Cohen.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion carried.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item number 3, which is the presentation of the 2024 business plan. That is the draft business plan, CEO Kelly.
Excuse me. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Brian Kelly, the Chief Executive Officer for the California High-Speed Rail Authority. I'm happy this morning to present the summary of the 2024 draft business plan, which we released publicly on February 9th this year. Just by way of reminder, if you will, for the board, when we put out the draft business plan every year, it kicks off a 60-day public comment period. Today is the first hearing we're having in person to comment on the business plan. And we'll also go through, as we do every business plan, go through legislative hearings as well. Those are set for March 11th and March 12th this month. We'll return to the board on April 11th at that hearing to have the business plan revised as the board may direct and adopted. And it has to be released to the legislature by May 1st of this year. Again, this is the third plan we put out in a pretty condensed period of time. It got a little bit condensed during the COVID experience we all went through that moved some of the timing of our project update reports and business plans, so they got a little bit squeezed together. The business plan, the project update report that we put out in 2023 was the most significant update on cost and schedule issues that we put out in some time, and that schedule is largely holding, and those cost estimates are holding from the 2023 project update report. So the business plan still works off of those schedules and cost estimates from the 2023 and I'll go through that in some more detail. Let me just jump into that. So why don't we go to the next slide? I can't really see what you guys are seeing. There we go. Okay. So again, this is working off of the 2023 project update report that was released in March. That set a target for the early operating segment for the Merced to Bakersfield stretch as between 2030 and 2033. We updated our cost estimates based on escalation and inflation that was seeing record high during the COVID period. And we updated our risk analysis as well. We set a funding strategy informed by the California legislative budget decisions and federal bipartisan infrastructure law. We established new ridership and revenue forecasts based on a new model developed by the authority's early train operator in coordination with the State Transportation Agency. And we updated our baseline budget schedule informed by funding. Finalizing commercial agreements and tracking systems are schedules to complete CP1 in 2026, CP2, 2026, and CP4, substantial completion by the end of 2023. Those schedules are all holding today. We set targeted goals for critical procurement such as tracking systems, train sets, station and extension design, and all of those are coming before the board as we roll through 2024. Next slide, please. A lot occurred in the 11 months between the time we issued the project update report and the business plan that's now before you and released publicly. The biggest developments over that 11-month period included the award of $3.3 billion in federal funds for the program, so we can continue our work on the Merced to Bakersfield early operating segment. This was a very significant expression by our federal partner, not just because the funding is needed to complete the work, but it was really the first time the federal government was able to embrace and endorse our strategy going forward. The 119 miles was never the original federal funding we received. That 119-mile segment was never a strong operating run because of the beginning and the end points. Governor Newsom in early 2019 proposed to extend that initial structure 54 miles in each direction roughly into Merced and into Bakersfield. So we were connecting the cities of the Central Valley. And in 2023, the federal government endorsed that proposal. All of the funding they provided the authority in the big grant in December was for elements of the extensions into Merced and Bakersfield and to buy new electric high-speed trains. And so it was a very important moment for us and really the announcement and the re-engagement of our partner on this project. We also advanced important procurements to move the project forward in operations, including getting design contract out on the track and systems, beginning the work, getting the design, the qualification contract out on the train sets and moving other important procurements so we can move the project forward. Our first construction package, CP4, covering 22.5 miles in the Central Valley, has reached substantial completion. Construction jobs exceeded 12,000 in 2023, record high numbers for daily workers on the job sites and a record number of structures completed in a single calendar year. We also exceeded our goals for the percentage of right-of-way parcels acquired, 98%, and the number of utilities relocated in a single calendar year. In 2023, we reached 254. And we met contract milestones, keeping designs for the extensions to Merced and Bakersfield on schedule. Next slide, please. Central Valley progress, that map that you see on the screen there is really the totality of the initial operating segment. That's the 171-mile segment connecting the key large stations are the connections between Merced, Fresno, and Bakersfield. In 23, we completed 17 structures. We improved the right-of-way planning and management, again, resulting in the 98% parcels delivered. We spent a lot of time on third-party agreements, and through executive engagement and third-party task force efforts, we worked through and completed 97% of the third-party agreement and design approvals that were pending. In 2023, we finalized our revised baseline schedules for CPs 1 and 4, and we're working on the final RBS for CP 2-3 this year. And of course, the funding to support the final design and right-of-way for the Merced and Bakersfield extensions were part of the federal grant that we received in December. Next slide. This is a scorecard that's familiar to all of you. It's also in our business plan. But again, it's just to show you the status of each of the construction segments that are moving forward in the valley. You can see design, right-of-way, utility relocations are projected to near completion as we get through 2024. Structures and guideways are continuing to advance, and the construction packages, each of them are on the same schedule we announced in the project update report last year. Next slide. On stations, which you're going to learn a lot about today, both through presentations from Meg Cederoth, our Director of Planning and Sustainability, also through a more focused tour of the station sites that are to my left, far left over there. We are collaborating with officials and stakeholders for pre-rail activities, gathering feedback for successful station site planning. We've moved the design concepts forward, working closely with the localities. Under schedule, we executed the design schedule in March of 23. We completed design concepts for all 4 stations in November of 23, and we're continuing that design work in 24 for the schematic design phase. So again, moving forward on the stations under the contracts that you all approved. Next slide. In Northern California, the Bay Area, as you know, we've completed the environmental clearance of all segments into downtown San Francisco. So we're now preparing that for advanced design work. We will continue to pursue federal funding, so we can advance design into the San Jose and San Francisco areas. Integration with the existing rail networks, including $700 million investment in the Caltrain corridor electrification project. That again is a corridor that we will also use as we get into the peninsula area. So the electrification of that project is about a $2.9 billion project, of which we are funding about $733 million. We're working closely with San Francisco and others, the Transbay Joint Powers Authority, on the design and the expansion of the downtown extension project known as the portal that links rail lines into the Salesforce Transit Center. The Diridon Integrated Concept Plan is for a huge regional rail station in San Jose. We serve on that planning board and that committee and work with partners, San Jose, VTA, Amtrak, and others on that station concept design, and we continue to advance that. And we are actively seeking additional funding for design work and geotech studies in the Pacheco Pass so we can link this to get a better understanding what it will take to link the Bay Area to the Central Valley. Next slide. In Southern California, we have a keen focus on enhancing the regional connections and infrastructure, funding early projects, and completing the environmental clearance. We will be coming back to this board in June of this year to clear or certify the environmental document between Palmdale and Burbank. That's an important accomplishment because with that one certified, the entirety of downtown San Francisco to downtown Los Angeles will be environmentally cleared. And again, that helps us then move forward on advanced design work necessary to refine the alignments, refine the stations, and refine cost estimates for the project. We're also working closely with LA Metro. They are the construction leads on this, but we had funded about 80 million, just short of $80 million for the Rosecrans-Marquardt Avenue grade separation. That is on schedule to be completed in early 2025. And I mentioned the draft environmental work between Palmdale and Burbank. We're also exploring a connection with Brightline West via the High Desert Corridor extending to Las Vegas. Of course, you know that Brightline was also a recipient of significant federal funding in December. And now a key focus of our work going forward is to work with Brightline and the JPA that's handling the High Desert Corridor to find the right connecting points, the right connecting station for where our system will connect with the Brightline system. Next slide. Funding the program. Again, we've got on the state side, we have funding sources that are inclusive of a bond bill that passed in 2008. We're now coming to the end of those bond dollars. Later this year, we'll seek the issuance of about, well, in totality, about 2.2 billion. That's the last 2.2 billion of the bond funds that we'll be seeking issuance of to move forward on our construction work. And of course, our other major source of funding, the only ongoing source of funding we have at the state level, is the cap and trade dollars, which have in the last 2 years have been on pace to be very robust. I think the 2-year total, if you analyze that going forward, would bring in about $1 billion a year. And the last 3 auctions, if you annualize those, would bring in about 1.25 billion a year. So cap and trade has been robust. The key thing that we highlight in this report about the cap and trade source of funding is that we have to work with the legislature soon to extend that source of funding for this project because it's the only ongoing source we have. And while it's robust, we want to settle its duration of availability to us sooner than 2030. We've got a lot of activities to get done between now and then, and we need to know that the cap and trade dollars are available. On the federal side, you will recall in the 23 project update report, we had identified a strategy to secure $8 billion in federal funds over a 5-year time horizon. We were able to develop this strategy working closely with the Federal Railroad Administration and really the availability of new federal funds for the Infrastructure Improvement and Jobs Act, the IIJA. In the first 2 years of that, we've now secured about $3.4 billion in funding. The big award was roughly 3.1 in December, but we had received about 300 million in total in smaller grants before that. So we will continue to push for the remaining 4.7 over the next 3 years with our federal partnership, both from the Federal State Partnership Program and other funding programs that are part of that federal act. So our current projected funding with all those revenue sources is between 27 and 30.5 billion, assuming the cap and trade revenues stay where they have been lately in the last couple of years. So at that level, that's a range of funding that we have for the program. Next slide. This is a fairly hard to look at chart, but I'm gonna simplify it for you. On the left, at least my left, looking at the screen, the 2023, what we call the 23 project update report. This is our phase strategy for how we'll go forward with federal and state fundings to complete different phases of the project. In 23, anything that's not green is unfunded in 23. Now, when we received the funding in December and the other dollars we received during 2023, You see what it looks like on the right. In 2024, there's a lot of green. And so you can see that obviously the award of federal funding is very helpful for us to move forward on the project. There are challenges, though. We have to be clear about this. We didn't get full funding for all things that we want to do between now and the opening of service. And so we have to continue to go back and work with our federal partners. We have to stabilize state funding for this. And for example, we applied for double track funding within the 119-mile segment of the project. And while we didn't get that, we got funding to expand double tracking further into Bakersfield. So it does mean that we got to work through the chronology of how the second track comes in. And we'll have to also work to find other funding for the second track within the 119. So it's a continuation of working closely with our federal partner, working closely with the legislature to make sure that we can identify at the time needed the right color of funds so we can move forward on project elements. But again, just stepping back and looking at the screen and saying, is more green or less green? A lot more is green. And that is the result of the initial federal funds we got and very helpful for our program going forward. Next slide. Our capital cost estimates, these are the same that we identified in the 2023 project update report. We tend to do broad capital cost updates for the entire phase one system over a 2-year period. There's a lot of things that we go through, including completing environmental work, doing new analysis on risk, understanding where we are on the current construction sites, and then we update them in the second year of that cycle. So we will be updating all costs as we get to the next business plan. But the other reason these didn't update is that we are operating within the current budget that was adopted under the 2023 project update report. The two areas where there will be a shift in cost going forward that we identified both in the project update report and in this business plan, has to do with when we complete the environmental work for two of the more expensive segments. The Palmdale to Burbank stretch, again, we'll be back to you in June to certify that environmental document. And there are elements of that where the costs have grown significantly versus where they were when the environmental work started. And so we will be updating those costs for that. And in LA to Anaheim, it's the same. And the reason that we wait before we update the costs is during the environmental process, costs can swing in a big way. For example, that LA to Anaheim stretch, at one time we were looking at an alternative where the cost for that LA to Anaheim stretch was going to be about $9 billion. We made some adjustments. We're coming back to the board for a new preferred alternative on that, where that cost comes down to about $6.7 billion. That's a $2.5 billion swing through work we've done in the environmental process. That's why we wait before we update those numbers. Next slide. Again, it's a costly endeavor, but I would say that if high-speed rail is going to ultimately cost on the order of 125 or 130 billion to go from San Francisco to LA, there are two important things to know about that. One, it is in line with high-speed rail costs globally. And two, and that's what this chart is, for the carrying capacity you get with the high-speed rail system we're proposing to build between San Francisco and LA, if you were going to achieve that through highway expansions and airport expansions, we'd spend twice the amount of money, and you would not get the mobility benefit or the environmental benefit that this project provides. Next slide. Ridership projections in the project update report in 2023. We updated our ridership projections, and those are on the left on this slide in yellow for each chart. And the blue is where what it looks like today. Ridership did come down, mostly tied to the reduction or the stagnant population growth in California. California's, for the first time in my life and career, California's population has been very flat. And in some years upcoming, they're actually expecting a dip. And I recall when I first started in my public service career, California was adding about 500,000 people a year. So things have changed a bit, and that affects ridership. But again, versus the PER, it's relatively stable just because not enough time has passed in the last 11 months. What our team is doing, and you see here the ridership numbers for Valley to Valley and phase one. The other element of ridership that's important is the Central Valley initial operating segment. Our teams are working closely with the Amtrak folks, the San Joaquin service, the ACE service, and the California State Transportation Agency on a model that considers all of the ridership and capital projects that they're putting together, because we are expressing the Central Valley ridership in a regional ridership or transit number, which is what we did in the PER. That analysis is not done yet, so we're continuing to work on that. We're going to try to update that more before this business plan gets final in April, and we'll also update it further in the 2025 business plan. But I can tell you that my expectation is it'll be materially similar to where we were in the project update report. Next slide. Risk. First, some of the risk things that we've achieved through identifying the risk, then managing, monitoring, and improving issues. One is, of course, as I mentioned, the right-of-way area. We did change the leadership and the management of the ridership thing, and we also changed the ridership division, and we also changed the way we articulate the expectations from ridership, from right-of-way. And so as a result of that work, we improved and accelerated the parcel acquisitions in the Central Valley. We've resolved virtually all of the large commercial issues that have been longtime wars or battles between contractors and the authority in the construction segments in the valley. We settled the litigation between the Burbank Airport and the authority during 2023. We've issued stay agreements on the 3 Bay Area lawsuits that are pending, and those are all in negotiation for settlement now. And we completed along CP4 necessary agreement for the semi-tropic water storage district canal realignment in Kern County, so we can move that work on our alignment. Top risks that going forward that we identify in this business plan, the top one remains funding uncertainty. The difficulty of this project is to manage it and hold the schedule when you don't have full funding. And that's the trick. So we got to continue to push for federal funds and get greater certainty on the state funding that are available so that schedule becomes more concrete. Third-party management, we've talked a lot here about utility relocations, issues with third parties as we move through the construction. That remains something that we spend a lot of time on and focus on going forward. Workforce planning for us is really about making sure the organization's capacity is as high as it needs to be in-house, not simply relying on consultants, but also our in-house capacity is up. We have a major staffing augmentation pending before the legislature now in this year's budget cycle as part of that. And so we continue to focus on that. And then as part of our success, I define success as the project advancing. And one of the things that it's advancing on is moving from a construction project into an operations project, where we have to now think about stations and what a train looks like and what's in a train that we're hearing about today, but also fares and schedules and all the things that come with rail operations. And so we have to integrate that part of the new challenge with the construction challenge, and program integration management is something that we're focusing a lot on as well. These are some of the key risks that we have going forward. Next slide. So what's next for the 2024 business plan, or what we're identifying is what's next for the program? Finishing the CP 1 through 4 construction work and the design work for the Merced and Bakersfield extensions, continuing the environmental review of the remaining project sections, advancing some collaborative projects in Northern and Southern California regions, executing procurements to advance the rail strategy, train sets, track and systems, overhead, catenary systems or contact system. I continue to work on the station designs and advocate for additional future funding. The other thing that I think is worthwhile to mention is the project update report did get a review from our Inspector General's office. It was found generally to be reasonable and a credible document, but they also identified some things they'd like us to address in this business plan to be more transparent and address a couple of things that they didn't see in the project update report, which we are now working to do as we move forward in this business plan. So our goal remains unchanged from the project update report to this plan, which is electrified service between 2030 and 2033. And I think with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for our CEO? Yes, Director Skusha.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. If I can take you back to slide number 9. Just a quick question. When you say you're talking about exploring a connection to Brightline West via the High Desert Corridor, what's the scope of those discussions, and do you have a timeline in which will we hear something more definite?
Yeah, so I just spoke with the president of Brightline yesterday. And we're going to get our teams together in March because there's no board hearing for us in March. And so it's a good time for us and it's a good time for them. But to get our teams together, and the reason we point to the High Desert Corridor, there's a separate JPA in that region that's working on what that corridor looks like from a service standpoint. And historically, the idea was the two systems would meet at Palmdale. We continue to have a stop at Palmdale. Brightline is now moving from Vegas to Victorville to Rancho Cucamonga. And so the question is, what does it take? The spread between Victorville and Palmdale is roughly 50 miles. So the spread is, what does it take and what are some strategies that we can look at there for the two systems to connect at one place or the other, and who's doing what to make that connection happen? And so it's discussions that we want to engage in this year. It will start as a high level discussion. We'll start with Brightline in March.
And I assume that once people from Nevada get to Rancho Cucamonga, that from there they would make a transfer, I assume, via, is it Amtrak to Union Station in downtown LA?
It can be, and I know that they're working on a people mover element to that too. Bruce, maybe, do you know? Metrolink, sorry, Metrolink.
Metrolink.
Yeah.
But it would connect from Rancho Cucamonga to Union Station, downtown LA. Okay. All right. So, I mean, I'm glad that those type of discussions are going on because obviously, you know, I'm looking at the 2028 LA, the Olympics, and we need to get people from everywhere, you know, to come to downtown LA, including the party people from Nevada. I have another question, and that's with regard to back to your slide 14 over ridership projections. And I'm not, well, I always work from the worst case scenario and try to make my way into hopefully a happy scenario. But what about if these riderships do not, projections do not materialize? What happens then?
Well, if the ridership projections don't materialize, one, from a service standpoint, you have to adjust your service. And then more concerning would be the revenue impact. I will tell you that at the back of this document, there's a bunch of appendices. And those appendices include the analysis we do on the risk for that. And so there's probabilities tied to it. And so there's a probability for how we will hit this ridership number in 2030, 2040, and 2050 in terms of, 2030, 2040, 2050, in terms of whether or not the ridership will meet our revenue projections. We are. And what that concludes is right now, I think I'm going off the top of my head, but it's in the back of the document in the appendices. There's like a 72% probability that Valley to Valley hits the full number on year one or on day one. And after the first year, it jumps to about 83%. And by year four, it's like a 99%. So we worked that through a Monte Carlo risk analysis that's done. And it's all described in the appendix and in the back.
So, on page 15, when you identify your top risks, would you include ridership projection as a risk, or is that more of a risk in subsequent years?
I would say it's a risk, although I feel like I feel like these projections that we are using are an advanced model, and they take into consideration all of the recent population changes that we've seen. And I think the probability, the way we do the risk and the probability that it looks good, certainly on the Valley to Valley and the phase one system. And just to give you like a level of magnitude on this, when we say we're expecting roughly 12 million riders on the Valley to Valley service, Central Valley to the Bay Area, that's roughly the same amount of the intercity riders that now go on the Northeast Corridor, which is the largest, most heavily used intercity system in America. And so San Francisco to the Valley would meet that on day one. And then when we talk about phase one, San Francisco to LA, on the order of 30 million riders, which is about 2.5 times what that Northeast corridor does. So they are robust. We will go at this and update this. This is not a set in stone thing. We go through this analysis every couple of years and update. And so we'll continue to do that.
All right, thank you. No more questions, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, I have one question. Brian, a lot of good information in this report, but, and I think you and I have talked about this, and I left a message this week with just respect to, I think what this document is going to need is a schedule, the schedule. You know, we had a few assembly members, just as an example, recently in Fresno touring the site, which they were very impressed with all the work that's been going on. But the fundamental question they asked is when are the trains going to be running? Then they asked, you know, when are the trains going to be bought? When are you going to lay track? You know, all legitimate questions everybody's asking. But I think in a document like this, if I'm an assembly member, they don't have time to read it. But if there's one page that says we're going to be writing, people are going to be writing trains by 2033, and then do the critical path down. We're going to buy trains here. We're going to lay track here. We're going to do this here. That's a page they can tear out the book and put on their wall, and they can something they can hold us accountable to in terms of our schedule.
Well, and I just want to clarify one thing, not just hold us accountable, but hold themselves accountable too as well.
Well, that's
because what I want to be really clear on
That's
is, as I said earlier, we meet schedule when we have funding.
Understand that.
And so the 2033 to 33 horizon that we put in this is the same that was in the 2023 PER. And there is, if you look on page 26 and 27 of the document, there's a timeline on that schedule and a paragraph that says it's aggressive and is dependent on some things. But as long as the funding comes in as we need it, I think we can get there. And
Of
so
course, it's all contingent upon funding, but what I'm saying, I mean, just in the last few months, I think we've made a lot of progress in terms of releasing RFPs, RFQs, et cetera.
Yes.
But all those leads to, we're going to start laying track here.
Yes.
Down the way. We're going to buy a train here.
I think we can accommodate.
I think we need to be very definitive when we say that. And of course, understanding that it's all based on money, right? If we don't have the money, then it's just a dream. It's what our vision, our goal is, but
we have a very finite schedule and we can accommodate that as we get to the final draft. We can be clear.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, Brian, you just mentioned about state legislators holding themselves accountable. And, you know, as a former state legislator, I agree with you, spot on your comment. And I also am reminded right now of a comment made during public comment. A gentleman said that the state has got to step up in terms of funding. So, you know, it's impossible to think that the feds will finance this 100%. So my question to you is, what's going to be our strategy for us, high-speed rail, to come up with a strategy of funding and go to the state legislature and say, come on, pony up?
Well, I want to be fair in my answer. Okay. So the first part of it is we should all be clear that the state of California, between bond money and cap and trade dollars, is still funding about 75% of this. Okay. It used to be 85 and we got a little more federal money. So it's a little bit better.
But the cap and trade dollars are very ambiguous. I mean,
well, that's the next thing I wanted to get to. We cannot wait till 2030 to extend cap and trade. We have things to get done between now and then. My strategy, since I got here and working with an incredible team of committed public servants and consultants who work together on this, was to first improve our credibility. Because I don't think we can ask anybody for money until we start to identify achievable milestones and hit them. And in my view, we've gotten much better at that. And I think that, and I say that because I think it helps the conversation about money. And in the last 2 years, we've gone to the legislature and said, please release the remaining bond dollars. And they said yes. And we went to the federal government and we said, we need money. And they said yes. And I believe that was because collectively, we've all taken steps to be better, to get better. So the first thing is that has to continue, right? The second part is there are two things that are going to make this work or make this happen. One is we do have to solidify the state funding. We do have to go to the legislature and we have to lay out the timing that we need the cap and trade dollars. And we have to continue to work with our federal partner. On the federal level, It can change with who's in the White House. I mean, that happens. We've lived with both sides of that coin. But at the state level, look, the state legislature has now said in statute, in the law, that the highest priority for us is to get Merced to Bakersfield done. We are now advancing this work in a methodical way. We are moving forward on our procurements. We keep coming to you guys on procurements every month. There's one coming up in a moment. So we can keep hitting milestones and advance the work. And I think we have to show is the value that this brings in the Central Valley to get that work done. We must do. Our strategy outside the Central Valley is to finish the environmental work, continue to do advanced design work so we can refine exactly what that's going to look like, and refine costs. And we have to work with a whole group of folks, private sector, local, federal, and us, to then describe how we'll fund these extensions. How will we get to San Francisco? How will we get to LA? Candidly, I think those two extensions are later conversations. Right now, we need to advance the work, but we're on this thing to get operational in the Valley that is now our statutory highest priority. And so I think it's continue to be definitional about what you're doing, continue to hit your milestones, talk to the legislature about how quickly you need this to achieve what they said they want us to achieve. And that's the only strategy I know, because we are providing enough strong benefit on the project locally, and I see it and I feel it. I mean, the mayor of Fresno called in today. He's got some issues that we are working through on design and road closures, which are always part of a construction project. But every mayor in Fresno who had once opposed this project see the economic benefits of it, and they support it. And I think we have to just keep doing our job, keep delivering. Those benefits materialize. The coalition necessary to get funding and keep it going becomes easier. And I just think that's what we got to continue to do. It's a long-winded answer, but it's not a simple question, really.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our CEO? Seeing none, thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Madam Secretary, are the numbers of people who wish to speak still, as I asked you a while ago? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, in public, we will now take public comment on the 2024 business plan. I think we've got three members in the audience here who have cards in. So, Madam Secretary, if you'd call them.
Yes, thank you. David Schwagel.
Good morning, David Schwagel, emphasizing the importance of accurate representation of the travel time per exhibit 0.0 and economic benefits per exhibit 0.3 of the high-speed rail. Now, for both exhibits, high-speed rail is spot on. For the initial exhibit 0.0 for travel time, high-speed rail is spot on. But if you drive back and forth from downtown San Francisco to downtown Los Angeles, it's unlikely you're going to be doing 8 hours in one shift. You'll more than likely be making a meal stop, and that takes an extra hour and a half. So add an hour and a half to that. And then aviation, as we know, airports are rarely located in downtown. We have to keep in mind the time-consuming formalities of going from downtown to the airport, plus having to get to the airport 2 hours early. And I actually timed this when I flew from Sacramento down to Los Angeles in the Burbank airport area, and it took 5.5 hours just to go downtown to downtown, which is almost as long as driving. Second, on the economic benefits, take a lesson from Roger Millar of Washington State DOT, who's going to be speaking at the U.S. High-Speed Rail Conference, a $108 billion investment to add one northbound and one southbound lane to I-5 through the state of Washington, 206 miles, versus a $42 billion high-speed rail system that will carry the passenger equivalent of a 12-lane freeway with airports at either end and generate $355 billion in economic returns. So get in touch with Roger Millar of Washington State DOT and find out how he did the analysis to come up with the $108 billion to add that one lane on I-5. Thank you.
Steve Roberts.
Do you have one for me this time, Mr. Roberts?
Retiring.
You do.
Good morning again, members of the board and Chair Richards. On behalf of the Rail Passenger Association of California, I'd like to encourage the board to approve the business plan and send it on to the legislature. I mean, we're in the tough part of this process now in the construction. I think if all you have to do is look at Florida and Brightline's results to see what the public perception will be when the initial operating segment begins operating, especially on the first Tule Fog day of December. They will really appreciate this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Pete Varma.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Board of Directors. My name is Pete Varma. I serve on the High Speed Rail Small Business Council. I'm here to talk about small business, and especially micro business. I'm a contractor, American Indian general contractor in Bishop, California, but we have office in San Francisco. I could have taken the high-speed rail from Peninsula to Sacramento, but it's not there. So I asked the board to approve the plan. Let's get this thing going. My emphasis is more about small business, micro business. Micro business are 85% of small business in state of California. And I would urge the board of directors to focus on these micro businesses. And I thank Mr. Brian Kelly for approving and including micro business on this plan, because as he has done that, it's only 3%. Very small amount of money will be spent with smaller company. State of California needs to wake up. There's more than 85% smaller business below $15 million threshold. And they need to participate on this program also. While we do need some large companies because of the capacity, but there's got to be opportunity for smaller companies. Myself and Laura Uden, she's here today. We created a SBE DBE construction coalition group. It allows small business to team up, partner, and bring that value to a prime. It would be great if we could meet with the prime and present our value so smaller companies can participate in this program.
15 seconds.
Thank you. I would ask the board to ask yourself this question: what I would love to do for micro business for high-speed rail project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Varner. You've certainly got our attention, and it's a strong commitment of this board. And congratulations.
Mr. Chair, we will now move to the Zoom participants. Once again, if you are joining the meeting via Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please use the raise your hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. Or if you are dialing in by phone, press the number 2. This will raise your hand and put you into our queue. Speakers will be called on in the order their hands are raised. Once you are in the queue and your name is called, please click the prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. If you are joining by phone, we will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you will hear a message that your phone is being unmuted. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to speak. I will notify you when you have 15 seconds remaining. When it is your turn to speak, please slowly and clearly say your name, and if applicable, state the organization you are representing. Mr. Chairman, our first speaker is Adam Vandewater.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chair Richards, directors, CEO Kelly. My name is Adam Vandewater. I'm the executive director of the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority in San Francisco, and I'm calling to express our support for the draft 2024 business plan. We commend the authority for your dedicated work on this draft plan and for continuing to advance this transformational project statewide. With the recent federal investment of over $3 billion, we're excited to see the initial operating segment approaching its operational phase and look forward, as the business plan suggests, to the commencement of work to connect the Central Valley to the Bay Area and LA basins. This progress could not come at a more opportune time as the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority continues to advance the Portal project, the most important mile of the state's high-speed rail system, as we say. connecting Caltrain's electrified service and ultimately high-speed rail into the multimodal Salesforce Transit Center in the heart of downtown San Francisco, where a third of all system-wide high-speed rail riders are projected to board or depart. The center has been in operation for over 5 years now, providing seamless connections among 8 local and regional transit systems and serving a high-density, transit-oriented neighborhood with 15,000 new residents in downtown San Francisco. Through our joint partnership, we're now making great progress to connect the state's rail system into our existing 2-story train box and connect high-speed rail throughout the entire Bay Area. Just this month, we received a positive rating for the portal, one of only 8 projects nationally in such an advanced state of readiness, and expect to be entered into the engineering phase of the Federal Transit Administration's New Starts program in the coming weeks. This critical federal funding source will provide up to half of the total cost of the rail connection to the transit center and allow us to deliver this connection as soon as 2033. Thank you. We look forward to continue our partnership with the authority to advance design on the NorCal segment, to jointly secure funding, including the extension of cap and trade, and to delivering on our shared commitment to extend high-speed rail into downtown San Francisco and realize its unparalleled environmental, social, and economic benefits. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And those who are in the queue for addressing us in the audience, we're going to ask the balance of these calls. I understand there might be 4 or 5 others. If we would reduce the time that we can allot today to 1 minute, we've got a couple of things we need to do, and we're going to lose 3 of our board members. So if you would please cooperate on that, I'd appreciate it. So if we can reduce your comments to 1 minute.
Next up, David Tran.
Good morning. My name is David Tran, here today speaking on behalf of the city of San Jose. We would like to first thank the authority for their collaborative engagement with our city and on the release of the draft 2024 business plan. It highlights a number of important successes, including recent federal funding and construction progress. We do agree, though, that identifying a stable and significant funding source is critical to advance the project. We encourage that the authority should articulate further how the project fits into the state rail plan. Particularly, the plan should address how the authority is proactively advancing key connectivity projects within the system, such as San Jose Diridon Station, where the greatest number of rail services will come together. The plan should also address the authority in making progress on critical path items, such as connecting advanced connections to the northern and southern California bookends. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Next, Chuck Riojas.
Good morning, everybody. Chuck Riojas. I am the elected head or the executive director of the Fresno-Madera Tulare Kings Building Trades Council. Thank you, Chair Richards and the authority board for allowing us to speak. I couldn't support this draft 2024 business plan anymore. It is phenomenal. We've on the Valley floor. We have done some great work moving forward. As part of the building trades, I'm heavily involved in apprenticeship opportunities for our local communities. And this project has allowed us to move many, many, many people into apprenticeship in the construction trades. And it allows them to an opportunity to get firmly into the middle class. It allows them to have access to quality health care and a pension. So I couldn't support this business plan anymore. I mean, it's great. It is phenomenal, and I wish you all the luck. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, Lauren Nickel.
Good morning. My name is Lauren Nickel, and I serve as the Director of Business Services for the Fresno County Economic Development Corporation, located in downtown Fresno. For over a decade, the Fresno EDC has remained firm in its support of California high-speed rail and recommends approval of the 2024 draft business plan as it appropriately reflects significant progress to move this project forward. It defines objectives, sets realistic goals, explains effective risk mitigation plans, and reflects where we have advanced the work to date, including the 171-mile Merced Fresno-Bakersfield interim operating segment. The state of California, private investors, and the city of Fresno have already committed hundreds of millions of dollars in planned investment and projects around the Fresno station, much of which hinges on a fully functional station and trains operating throughout the interim operating segment. For these reasons, we support the 2024 draft business plan as it will continue to move us on a path to operationalize the high-speed rail. Thank you.
Next, Jim Lawson.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Lawson. I'm with the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. And thank you, Chair Richards, for the opportunity to speak. We would like to express the support of VTA for the business plan. We also would commit to you our efforts to help in extending the cap and freight funding advantage for both high-speed rail as well as for other statewide efforts. As you know, VTA is building the BART extension to San Jose. I am at the Diridon station. We appreciate high-speed rails. We appreciate high-speed rail's cooperation in the Diridon area station concept plan, and we're happy to support this business plan. We ask approval of it. We know it will improve both our economy in California and, most importantly, our environment. Thanks again.
Next up, Marvin.
Hi, good morning again, Marvin Norman. I from San Bernardino. Also, glad to see the business plan, and we good to see the board move forward. And as Mr. Kelly mentioned during the thing, one thing that we have noticed is that we're expecting high-speed rail to alleviate, or it would cost cost much more than high-speed rail is costing to add the equivalent amount of lane miles or highway or airports. But the other side of the coin is that the state is still actually making those investments. And so, for example, the legislator has a bill right now, AB 2503, to redo the trade corridor plan, for example. And so it would be good to get the authority, or at least the legislator, thinking about making more of those programs available to the authority as well for funding, and so that they aren't funding, so that the high-speed rail is actually an alternative to those plans instead of just in addition, which is kind of what it is at present. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, we have no other attendees that would like to provide public comment.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We're now going to move on to agenda item number 4. Ms. Inouye, where are you? There you are. This is the notice to proceed to on the Fresno-Bakersfield locally generated alternative. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Richards and Board of Directors. I am Christine Inouye, the Chief Engineer of Strategic Delivery. Today, I will be presenting agenda item number 4, which is consider providing approval to issue notice to proceed to for the Fresno to Bakersfield locally generated alternative project. Next slide. Thank you. The authority is recommending approval to issue NTP 2 for the Fresno to Bakersfield locally generated alternative HSR contract 22-01. NTP 2 will result in continuing design services with HNTB Corporation to complete final design and construction-ready documents. Completing final design is a key milestone in the delivery of the Bakersfield extension and the completion of the early operating segment connecting Merced, Fresno, and Bakersfield. Next slide. NTP 2 will advance the project into stage 4 of the staged project delivery process. Stage 4 is the early works and right-of-way stage. NTP 2 services will include final design and construction-ready documents, construction staging plans and constructability reviews, updated travel time enhancements, updated project risks, construction schedule, and cost estimates, and begin securing environmental permits. Next slide. NTP 2 starts at Poplar Avenue in Shafter and continues south to the Bakersfield station. This is the entire length of the LGA project. NTP 2 contract value is $72 million. This is the same amount reported to the board at the time of request for qualifications and contract award in 2022. The work is planned to be completed within 2 years, with some overlap with NTP 1. Next slide. LGA has made good progress since contract award. Alignment workshops to optimize the design and enhance travel times were completed last summer. Draft configuration footprint was approved in January. Value engineering and value analysis workshops were conducted in the fall. The teams challenged and analyzed the designs, looking to improve value, performance, quality, and reduce costs. Final decisions on the value engineering and value analysis items will be incorporated into the final design. Right-of-way parcels have been identified, and right-of-way acquisition activities are planned to begin in the spring. Next slide. The authority also plans to complete all third-party agreements needed for the project by this spring. Now moving to small business utilization. HNTB is exceeding both the disadvantaged business enterprise and the disabled veterans business enterprise utilization goals. They have 15.8% DBE and 5.2% DVBE. Thus far, they have been tracking below the small business utilization goal at 23.8%. To address this concern, HNTB submitted a recovery plan. This plan has HNTB meeting or exceeding the small business goal by June. And we're seeing increases in the small business utilization in the latter part of 23 and the early part of 2024. So we are happy to see that they are currently on track with their plan to increase small business utilization every month. Next slide. I think we skipped one prior. Thank you. NTP 2 will be funded by 2 recent grants: the Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvement, or the CRISI grant, and the Federal State Partnership. These grants will fund a portion of the total cost of the final design. The January board item that approved augmenting the expenditure authorization related to these grants also included this NTP 2 scope. Slide. The key contract dates are shown here. With board approval, the authority anticipates issuing NTP 2 in April. Work on the final design will begin once NTP 2 is issued. Next slide. That concludes the presentation. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
I move. Vice Chair Miller.
But I have one quick question.
Vice Chair Miller, and then we'll have Director Schenk.
I just second the motion.
Yeah.
Director Schenk?
Yeah, just real quickly, this small business not meeting the goal is troubling. And I'd like to know what are their, what do you have in the agreement that they're going to meet this goal if they don't meet it? And what clawback do we have? And I want HNTB to know that this is a very important issue to most of us here, probably all of us on the board. So if they don't meet it, I mean, they have a plan, but if they don't meet it,
what are the ramifications then?
It's a very good question. Tony?
They submitted a mitigation plan.
They did.
Yeah,
They
but,
did.
but
Yeah.
what if they don't meet it?
Yes, Board Member Shank, the contract provisions are still goals. So there is no provision that allows for any type of penalty. However, the team managing it, Christine and others, as well as Katrina's team also works very closely. So between the two, and there is a mitigation plan that they are working on, updating their numbers and getting them up. But if your question is there some clawback or penalty? It is not, since it is a goal.
And Christine or Tanya, could you also talk about the limited NTP work we might do that would allow us to ensure they're meeting goals before we move on to the next portion?
Definitely, thank you. The authority may manage and progress the work through limited notice to proceed. Using the limited notice to proceed will provide the authority more milestones and also more contract deliverables. This will allow us to more closely monitor and manage the contract very carefully so that we can ensure both the timely delivery of the work and quality deliverables. It also allows us to monitor and manage the small business item from a month to month, if not even on a closer time frame.
So are you going to be monitoring HNTB month to month until June 24?
And past.
Well, I agree with Ms. Shank, because you're asking us here to basically approve this and to allow them to go forward. And I'm not too sure I want to do that when I see that their goal for small businesses, falls woefully short. And I don't have any guarantees or confidence right now that they are even going to meet the goal by June 2024.
I did want to add with regard to the contracts, it's not a penalty, but we have performance enhancement measures, and small business is one of those measures. It's one of, I believe, 4 measures. So they do get a higher fee if they meet everything. So if they're not meeting the small business portion of those performance measures, they will not get, it ranges from 8 to 11%. Their standard fee is 9.
Yeah, but for them to lose that money is the cost of doing business. Let's get real. I would just like to find out if the issue of the notice to proceed, once you issue the notice to proceed, and please excuse my ignorance, but once you issue the notice to proceed, can you call that back?
That's why we would like to use limited notice to proceed so that we can provide a smaller amount of work and continue to then provide and manage the
So
contract.
it's limited because it's a smaller scope of work?
It can be, it just can be a portion of it. And then we'll go on to the next portion and the next portion and all the way to the very end.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Chairman. Okay, thank you.
I have one question.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just so I'm clear, on the scope of work, you indicate on, that they're going to have agreements on all their third-party issues by spring of
Spring.
2024? Okay, will work begin before those agreements are in place?
We are already working on the early utility relocation designs in parallel with putting these agreements together. So we will be working with them together.
Okay, so what happens, and I asked the question because just looking at what's happening right now, going to Merced. Okay, it's nothing fatal, but I understand there are some issues with respect to work has been done, but some of the third-party agreements are not in place. So then the question arises, for whatever reason, they're not in place or there's delay, and then we have to pivot and redesign, or, what does that do to us in terms of time and cost if we design something that we can't at the end achieve?
That's why we have the goal to put the agreements in place this spring as early as possible. And so that we can minimize any risk of, as we move forward with the utility designs. team is very focused on putting together all of the agreements that we need for this project. In fact, all of them are currently either in negotiation or their final steps to move them forward and get them executed.
Okay, but will you design before those agreements are in place?
We will, the design will take a little longer than the spring to complete, so we will have, they will continue past the time that we expect the agreements to be in place. So we expect to have the agreements in place first and then finish the utility
You
designs.
expect it, but it's possible that that would work in reverse.
That is a risk that the project team is tracking and mitigating by putting these agreements in place as quickly as possible.
Okay, but is it true that if that were to happen, then it could create delays and it could increase cost?
We are doing everything that we can so that we don't trigger that, but it could be a risk.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any other
I do
questions or
have-
comments?
I do have a question, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
Director
So
Williams.
back to the issue of the small business participation goal. What are some of the elements of the remediation plan that you can share that with us that would kind of give us some confidence that they're on their path to meeting that? What's different? What's changing? What are they doing? What are they proposing to do to make that happen?
Sure, we've seen that they have started to provide some of the work or started to pick up work on two elements, the utility designs and the potholing to verify and identify the utility locations. So that work is going to small business. We're seeing that work pick up. And so we're seeing, as a result, the utilization number going up. HNTP has also provided a goal for every month for their their small business utilization number. And so for December, the number is 23.5, and in January is 25.1. We've been assured that every month, as this number increases, it increases about 1.5% every month, so that we can get to June, but with exceeding that 30%.
Mr. Inouye, that's the kind of active oversight that we're looking for. And if we're not seeing the trends in the right direction, we want it reported to us. What I do understand, or at least advised, is that this contractor is over on another contract he's got with us at somewhere, or it's got with us somewhere around 31%. Well, that's more than acceptable there. We just want to make sure of the active oversight on these contracts, and if they are not going in the right direction, we want to know about it.
Definitely, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Well, I just want to acknowledge that even though we're sort of focused on where the goal has been met, we do want to applaud both HNTP and you all for the goals that you have met and exceeded with respect to disadvantaged businesses and this. Yes, both of those. Thank
If
you.
there's one thing that's clear from your presentation is you are managing it, and that's what we expect, and we appreciate that. And you hear over and over the importance of this to all members on this board and to the management, in fact, the entire organization. We just don't want to let anything slip that we're not paying close enough attention to it. So appreciate your presentation. This is an action item, colleagues, so do we have a motion? Oh, yeah, we had a motion. That was an hour ago. And a motion and a second. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Director Schenk,
Yes.
Chair Richards.
Yes.
Director Camacho,
Yes.
Vice Chair Miller,
Yes.
Director Perea,
Yes.
Director Gilmetti, Director Escutia,
Aye.
Director Williams,
Aye.
Director Cohen.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairperson, the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, what we're going to do now is jump out of order. And for those in the audience, this is because we are going to lose, as I mentioned, three of our board members. We're going to move items 5 and 6 back a couple, and we're going to take the CEO update now.
Mr. Chairman and members, I'm Brian Kelly, the CEO for the California.
And yes, you are.
Thank you. Today. Anyway. So the CEO update, I want to start with the latest. As you know, we've had sort of an operating direction to participate in every federal grant opportunity that comes before us, and we've been extremely aggressive on that front. And I just wanted to report that we have a raise grant application that's now going in. These raise grants are limited to 25 million in totality. We are asking for 16 million, roughly 15.88 million from the federal government in the next raise grant cycle, so that we can complete entirely the design of the Merced station. The application, again, for final design and related third-party coordination for the Merced integrated multimodal station. The project will serve as a Northern California gateway to Sacramento, the Bay Area, and other San Joaquin Valley destinations, and points south for high-speed rail intercity passenger rail. So that is pending. We just have moved forward with that grant application. I also am required to report to the board under our bylaws and delegation of authority any contract amendments that exceed $25 million. So the first one is the extension of our PCM Wong Harris on construction package 1. As I said, the construction schedule on that is holding with our PER document, but we have to extend that contract for the remaining duration of that work. That is a $91.8 million contract and extended through September of 2025. The other thing I'm reporting is the what we call our provisional sums. This is the amount of money we put into an account so that we can work with our contractor to relocate utilities. We supplement that account every so often. We are supplementing the account by 62.5 for the relocation of PG&E and AT&T utilities that were excluded from the original scope of work for construction package 1, but are now in this scope of work. And so those are 2 contract amendments that we move forward with. That's all I have typically for the CEO report today, but I did want to just take a moment, and I want to first, I want to offer a line of caution. I think it's difficult in this setting to go through all the ins and outs of disputes you might have with a contractor. But in response to what was said earlier about a specific dispute during the public comment period, I think there's a couple of things that I just want the board to know. We have had some disputes with this contractor on both delivery of work and on documentation necessary for payment of invoices. And we have elevated that to the highest levels of our organization to work through, including the director of real property and my chief operating officer, who have been engaged with the contractor directly on this. Over the course of several months, the total value of that dispute is about $750,000, of which we have paid $676,000. So 91% of that has been settled. There remains some dispute over remaining deliverables and justification for invoices, including in the areas of billing, of hours worked. And so the final thing I'd say, we are not asking anything of this contractor that we don't ask of others. We're doing this similar type of work for the authority. The last thing I'll say about this here is that the authority's chief operating officer has had some discussions with the contractor's management team, and he's intending to go down to the Inland Empire to continue to work through the issues. But 90% of the dispute has been solved, and we'll continue to work on the last 10.
So then how much money is that issue right now? What's the dispute?
What I have in front of me today at the moment is 750,000 has been in dispute, 776 has been paid. Sorry, 676 has been paid.
So it
it's
leaves about
90% paid.
Okay. And you said the CEO is going down to the inland, the
Yeah.
COO is going down.
I believe they just had a discussion.
Would
today.
we be informed as to the status of those discussions?
Happy to do it. Happy to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you a question though also, Brian,
Yes.
in terms of page 3 of your slide presentation.
Yes.
The Wong Harris contract amendment.
Yes.
It says scope of work, no change to scope of work,
Right.
but yet there's an increase in budget.
Yes.
That doesn't seem to
Their
follow.
contract originally expired before the conclusion of the work on the ground. And so the work at the ground is extending to 26, so we're extending the duration of the contract. The number of the total cost of the contract reflects the number of months that we are extending it by their monthly rate
And that cost is, and that cost is 91 million.
over the extension period of the contract. So I think they bill, I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but I want to say on the order of 8 million a month, somewhere around there. And
And
so,
do we, the board, vote on that, or does that come under your authority?
as long as I am operating within the program budget contingency and authorization, I'm required to report to you what we're doing over $25 million. And so in every CEO report of this magnitude, I report that to the board.
Okay, now going back to the issue of the people that brought forth
Yes.
the allegations.
Yes.
When I hear Title VI, that scares me.
Yeah.
All right? It just scares me. But having said that, I do appreciate that you've already, you know, have settled 90% of the claim. Now, they may disagree, but you know, I go by what you're saying. So when your COO will go down to the Inland Empire and I guess check out with regard to the remaining 10% that remains in dispute, by when do you think we can get a sense of what the assessment is of the COO?
They just talked today. So what I think I can tell you is when there's a date certain of the meeting, I can inform the board when that will occur. And then I'm happy to update you as soon as the meeting is concluded.
Right. And Mr. Chairman, don't we have a small business committee that I think Vice Chairwoman Nancy Miller manages? Would this be an issue that perhaps could go before that little subcommittee?
I think you and I are on that committee, are we not?
I think we are, right?
Yeah, we can meet anytime, Marte.
Sounds good,
Okay.
Ms. Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Brian.
Thank you.
And I hope that I'm looking at you right now. You're the ones that came up in public comment. You know, I'm hoping that you can come to an agreement, you know, but we heard you. But I think that the CEO is also trying to work with you. So we just have to be, you know, gracious and generous and just make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. We will now pick up on the balance of our agenda. We'll go back to what was originally item number 5, which is now 6, is the Central Valley Station concept. And Ms. Cederoff, welcome.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
So Chair Richards and Vice Chair Miller and members of the board, thank you very much for this opportunity to give you an update on the progress of the design to date on the 4 Central Valley stations and give you some of the highlights of that concept design work, which we'll then go into in more detail when we break after the meeting and go look at the models. So next slide. In October 2022, the board approved a contract with a joint venture of Foster and Partners and Arup. This was for all of the design services to complete the 4 Central Valley stations. As of November 2023, the team had completed their site analysis and site investigation and multiple other analyses, the result of which is several plans, documents, draft configuration drawings, and reports that all come together in a concept design, in which we will look at in more detail today. Next slide. This slide is a snapshot of those 4 stations, and it illustrates that the team took the kit of parts, which are all of those elements that are common across all of those stations, and through a process of engineering and design, architectural concept design, they assembled all of those common elements in unique ways to meet the specific site conditions of each station. Next slide. Here, those common elements are blown apart. They're blown apart, so hopefully you could see them more clearly, although I'm not quite sure it comes up on the screen. These are the canopy, the platform, the vertical circulation, the substructure, and the station program, or all of the trackside elements. And on the next slide, you'll see that the size and the scale of those elements is informed by standard requirements, the California Building Code, the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as passenger flow modeling and rail technical specifications that are all referenced in our design criteria manual. In the next slide, the size and the scale of the station also depends upon how our customers are getting to the station, that mode of access. And so these elements comprise that landside station program or the site program. So here we've illustrated how we build up how our parking is sized, but we have comparable information that we could draw on for bicycling or for walking for transit access as well. Next slide. So the canopy shown here, illustrating the Fresno context, is a very hardworking and it's an important piece of the station. Can you see this okay? Okay, great. Primarily, it's a source of safety and comfort for our passengers, protecting them from rain in the winter as well as the 110-degree+ temperatures in summer. But it also serves as an identifier for the system and is common across all 4 of the station. So through analysis that drew on many engineering, technical criteria, and design factors, which were reviewed in consultation with authority engineering professionals, the design settled on a train shed concept that covers the initial 800 feet of the platform length. Spanning the tracks actually provides us with adequate shade for passengers and a more efficient shape to handle the loads of the 220-mile-an-hour trains, as well as the forces of gravity. On the next slide, you'll see that the design team is also working on all of the elements that comprise the station footprint, including the viaduct. We tend to think of stations as a standalone building, but this illustrates how the team have responded to the authority's interest in a building block approach and really a phased delivery structure for the station elements. So one optimization that they came up with was to use the viaduct as the ceiling and the columns to serve as walls to create an interior station experience. This is showing you an example of Merced, but we have this same configuration in Kings Tulare and in Bakersfield. Next slide. So you will have seen that the deck has many visual elements, and we wanted to be consistent to show you all of those across all 4 stations. And this gives you a taste of the range of the analysis that the team undertook over the past few months. So these studies have included understanding the historic context, next slide, as well as the existing and the proposed land use and the current site context, Merced shown here. Next slide. So that context, the site and its characteristics and how we need to accommodate passengers accessing the station is all vital data that we use to inform the station layout. You know, this is Merced. I know you have each of these slides in your deck for the other 3 stations. Next slide. The assignment for the team also included validation of functional station spaces with input from all of our engineering, strategic delivery, infrastructure delivery, and planning teams. And that was confirmed and helped us confirm that the design accommodates all of our rail technical requirements and interfaces and properly integrates all of those technical elements in the station. Next slide. So at this very early stage of the design process, it's a critical time to make sure that all of the very large-scaled elements of the station come together in the right spot. So assuring that the location of important station program, we've involved multiple technical meetings with local and regional transit providers, as well as city staff, Caltrans, and regional planning staff. So on this slide and all of the site plans that are in your deck, we've illustrated the location of important spaces for local buses, for regional buses, for pickup and drop off, as well as ADA parking and other parking. We do that so that we can check that the design is meeting our requirements for seamless, quick, easily walkable, and safe connections. Here you also see that there are 2 bridges planned within the Merced station. These bridges span the Union Pacific right-of-way, connecting the station into the surrounding street network. On the next slide, the reason for these bridges is very clear, hopefully, on this cross-section. The bridge brings our paying customers from the downtown up and over the Union Pacific right-of-way and onto directly onto our platform, which is shared with the San Joaquin Amtrak service. You'll recall from past presentations and from what CEO Kelly just illustrated that with AB 198, the authority's focus was put on the Merced to Bakersfield corridor, and specifically in Merced, we were directed to assure that the station was an intermodal rail connection. So we have the ACE service at grade, And you can see on this diagram, the San Joaquin service coming in on a viaduct, allowing for that cross-platform transfer directly to high-speed rail service south. On the next slide, now we're looking at the Merced sort of front door from the downtown side. And you can see that while the canopy presents that HSR identity, the plazas and other station elements reflect the local context in more detail and is work that will be evolving in schematic design. On the next slide, Fresno, the local context, I'm sure you all are familiar with this, having some of you live in Fresno. It's 60 miles to the south of Merced. This includes a historic passenger and freight depot shown here. On the next slide, you can see though that the station is in the center of Fresno. On the next two slides, you'll see that ridership and mode of access inform the sizing of the site elements. Next slide, as well as our space programming for the station elements and station program. And on the next slide, in Fresno, the site plan shows how we've identified specific locations for transit-oriented development on the station site alongside those key station facilities. This is because of the strong local planning that the city of Fresno has engaged in and has already completed for many years. This enables us to be much more intentional about where those TOD locations are and to anticipate and plan ahead for those utility loads as we design the station site. On the next slide, I think you understand our mission is to build a modern high-speed rail passenger facility with state-of-the-art station facilities. And while we're delivering those elements, we're also very focused on building up ridership and designing places on the station site that can be open for people in 2027. So thanks to the RAISE grant we received in July of 2023, we have capital dollars to construct plazas in Chinatown, downtown, and to rehabilitate the existing historic station on the overall station complex. Next slide. So this close-up shows those plazas in relationship to one another, as well as the historic depot, and it shows a bridge between Chinatown and downtown landing over G Street. I know I was grateful for Mayor Dyer to point out the preferences and the strong interest the city has in what we're doing relative to urban design with the location of that facility. So the bridge location you can see here was an important part of working out and resolving in concept design because it allows us to have the pedestrian bridge open even when we need to close the station for maintenance. On the next slide, this cross section provides a different look at that bridge, which has a roof over it because we respect that it's incredibly hot in Fresno, Bakersfield, Kings Tulare, and Merced. So that pedestrian bridge spans both downtown and Chinatown. And this is a good illustration of how all of those common elements come together to uniquely fit the site context, which in Fresno is at grade. That at grade condition enables greater connectivity in the city because these overpasses we're creating and underpasses also separate the traveling public from the UP right-of-way. You can also see from this illustration the importance of the station having two sides and equal and equitable investments in Chinatown and in downtown. So those passenger facilities are on both sides of the track, and that investment helps to reinforce the local economy and the surrounding neighborhoods. So very clearly, the station connects the city. And one element I'll point out, and then we'll move to the next slide, is that the concourse is sitting above the tracks. So as the designers have been accommodating all of these functional requirements for the station, the unique characteristics of the site, let's go to the next slide. The unique characteristics of the site start to become opportunities for signature urban spaces. So here, the concourse spanning the track provides a distinctive view of our trains that are running at 220 miles per hour. Next slide. This is a view from the downtown and the entrance to the station from that downtown side. And of course, at this stage, we know the location and the scale of that entrance, but we'll still be resolving architecture as we move forward. Next slide. Kings Tulare is a different context. It's a regional station. It's about 45 miles to the south of Fresno. Next slide. As I said, that different context is because it's serving that mid-county, 2 counties in the middle of the Central Valley. So there are more than 600,000 residents that are within a 10-mile capture area of the station, and it's located just a mile from the edge of the city of Hanford. I'd say this situation is comparable to stations that are on other systems such as in France and Italy and Spain and England. So as the team has been, next slide, analyzing data about Kings Tulare, they've also looked at those examples from those systems and those station contexts. So places such as Avignon in France or Reggio Emilia station in Italy to understand what those lessons are we should take away and apply to this condition. On the next slide, we understand those lessons and how we apply them to the flow of passengers from Visalia and from Hanford. And it also helps to inform a very sensible layout for the station to accommodate a very high park and ride or park mode share. So making sure we've arranged the station logically on day one allows it to expand flexibly as ridership grows. Next slide. The site plan reinforces the goal of the local jurisdiction, which I know you heard from a representative from the city of Hanford this morning in public comment. They have a very keen interest in more walkable, bikeable access, as well as a much more compact growth pattern for the city. And we've been working closely with both the city and with Caltrans to resolve some of the issues around the surrounding roadway network and accommodating also what we know about drainage patterns and the need for solar facilities on the site. Next slide. For those who've already visited the Hanford Viaduct, you understand that it's already in construction. So the station design team has been working closely with the CP23 team overall to make sure that the platform structure, the platform viaduct, and the substructure are all integrated correctly with the existing viaduct. On the next slide, because the viaduct is in construction, it means our focus is on much more modular station elements that can be expanded as ridership grows. Next slide. While still providing that inviting day one situation for our customers. Our next slide, and the last station in the 4, is furthest to the south, and that's Bakersfield, which is 80 miles to the south of the Kings Tulare station. On the next slide and the next 2 slides, you'll see that the historic context and the current context is somewhat resonant with other cities in the Central Valley. Next slide. But Bakersfield is exceptional in that it will be a terminal station for the first operating segments and then transition to a through station as we move to the south. However, on day one, we will have the situation where you'll end your journey on high-speed rail and then transfer into bus service as you do today. And that's all accommodated in the station design. On the next slide, the station location in Bakersfield is just 1 mile north of the existing downtown, and it's the result of the settlement of litigation with the city, and it is generally referred to as the locally generated alternative, or LGA, which I know Ms. Inouye was just speaking about. The city has made it the focus of local planning, and they see this as the destination for a new node of development. It's where they'd like all of the mixed-use compact walkable development to happen, as well as to expand the height of the development that they see in Bakersfield. So this vision for taller, denser economic development and mixed-use opportunities are accommodated on the site plan. To that end, we've introduced a very logical grid pattern on the site. It's reflective of the local historic street network and context. It allows this station to expand over time and for us to accommodate on day one, parking and rental car facilities and bus facilities, and then transition to transit-oriented development. We're also involved right now in a very detailed roadway network analysis to understand the data underlying various configurations of roadway access to the station. And I know what our CEO, Brian Kelly, would emphasize is that this station is in the center of Bakersfield and not at the edge of CP4 in an orchard. So the new federal funding provides us with a very clear focus to get to these population centers and to start advancing right-of-way for the extensions to Bakersfield and Merced. On the next slide, you'll see that from a design standpoint, the Bakersfield station is constructed within and on a very tall viaduct. It's 60 feet tall. That allows our alignment to move very smoothly into and out of Bakersfield and accommodates moving over various highway interchanges. The next slide. The design team has taken that height as an opportunity to create a very active space underneath the viaduct. It's a very long linear viaduct and provides quite a bit of shade for activities, including a range of trails and sports facilities. And we also envision vendor spaces coming under this viaduct. And it also provides a little bit more of that classic train hall feel because it is such a tall space. Next slide. At the entrance is a new plaza, and that's a very shaded, comfortable pedestrian realm, which ideally will be surrounded by transit-oriented development. Next slide. So the stations are, of course, key parts of the high-speed rail system. And while they're places of intense technical interface, they are in and of themselves major investments in communities. So consultation is a critical part of station delivery. Meeting with our partners to unearth complementary projects that help build up ridership and activity in the station has been a parallel and important piece of planning engagement, and it will continue in schematic design. I wanted to emphasize that we will be having a community meeting in likely early October in each of the 4 station locations to allow the public time with all of the concept designs. Next slide and final slide. So the next steps are very clear. Today, we're providing an opportunity for a board to review the concepts in detail. Over the next month, we will be taking what we've learned from this process as well as all of the technical review in the past few months and refine that for day 1 operations and finalize our draft 30% drawings, as well as refine some elements into a budget constrained phasing plan. In April, we will see the initiation of a flurry of schematic design activities focused on completing schematic design in the 4th quarter. This brings us to several key milestones over the next few months, including the design of initial utilities relocations, as well as clear right-of-way acquisition plans. And we'll be poised to advance to NTP 2, which includes design development, final design, and those construction drawings to be ready for bid and to advance all of this near-term work so that we're meeting the timeline that's laid out in the business plan. Thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to showing you all of the stations after the board meeting, but I'm happy to take questions now.
Any questions for Meg?
I have a, if you indulge me, Mr. Chair. It's going to be a long-winded question. But first of all, I want to sort of congratulate and thank you guys for all the work you're doing. I mean, the fact that we're having such engagement with the communities that are, throughout this alignment, throughout the Central Valley, from Merced to Bakersfield. We heard from them today as part of public comment. I'll just sort of take a right of personal privilege, maybe to some degree, as a Bakersfield native, and talk specifically about what is happening there, and really appreciating the comments of Mayor Go. And then also getting on my soapbox about how this project, we talk a lot about the economic impact of the construction, but as we all know, the operation of this system will last far longer than the construction, and the impact economically will be seen for decades, is sort of what we hope. So as we talk about these stations as sort of an anchor and a catalyst for a lot of that economic development, it was sort of made clear to me in what we heard from Mayor Go, and I've had a chance to talk with her and some of the folks down in Bakersfield about that station in particular, and and the possibility of reimagining State Route 204 as it comes into the station, and from Union Avenue, and really sort of being part of what are state and national efforts to, transform and support highways to boulevard activities and initiatives. This is a part of undoing decades of, we can now say in hindsight, sort of wrong-headed development as we used highways as a way to carve up, communities and that had hugely negative economic impacts on a lot of folks. This is an initiative to sort of undo that. I see Highway 204 as, if we do this right, that will be part and parcel of that effort to create quite a bit of economic activity around those communities that, these are Cal Enviro screen communities. This is highest impact of negative environmental, economic, high pollution, high poverty. And I just want to emphasize that I know we have a really strong partnership with our sister agency at Caltrans, but I do want to encourage us to continue to push on that and what ultimately happens with Highway 204. And I just really want to again commend Mayor Go. She's gonna always be my mayor. It's just kind of one of those things. She's an extraordinary force there, but she needs our help to continue to tell that story. So I want to make sure that I emphasize that. And then lastly, and then my question, so thank you for that, is you mentioned that there are going to be some more sort of public engagement opportunities. And I know I just, again, commend our staff and what we do in terms of public engagement. I think it's second to none. But it did kind of concern me a little bit. You mentioned, I just want to clarify, you mentioned that there will be additional input or public engagement that'll happen in October of this year. Did I get that wrong?
May have misspoken.
Oh, okay.
So we do have regular technical meetings, coordination meetings with stakeholders and kind of the immediate area with cleared all of those third parties with jurisdiction right by the station. But what we've planned for April, hopefully I didn't say October, April, now that the board has seen the concepts and had a chance to take a look at them, and as we've gathered all of this incredibly important feedback from the local jurisdictions and from technical stakeholders, from all of my colleagues throughout the rail organization to make sure the stations work functionally, we want to make sure we have a good moment before we jump into the pretty intensive work of schematic design. So before we initiate all of that work, we want to have a moment with the public to make sure they've seen the station concepts and we gather their feedback as well. And then in October, we hope to have those schematic designs complete.
Got it. Okay, that's where I got confused. I wanted to make sure if we were coming back in November with finalizing that we were just getting public input and like that. So thank you. That helps to clarify that, so again, thank you for that. So important that we keep community, local public engagement as part of this and having folks, and some folks won't be happy. We get that, but it's important to hear those voices and make sure that they have an opportunity to be heard as we finalize this and move these things forward. So thank you. Appreciate that.
I just have a quick question. That's all right. Meg, I'm looking at the site plan and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but I don't, and mainly it's shade in these areas, parking. We have ordinances here in Sacramento where you have to have in the parking lot, every parking space has to have a tree. And I'm assuming that comes up in your schematics, not now, right?
It does.
Okay, and then as to the comments of the Fresno mayor, it looks like there is shade on this pedestrian walkway. Okay, and then on Chinatown access, it also looks like there's Chinatown access. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Yes, I would say that I thought it was incredibly important to hear what the mayor's concerns are. And I'd say that the concept design has been very carefully developed so that we understand those very signature urban design moves and make sure they're respecting that local context. And so that shade and then making sure the Chinatown investment is strong is key.
So maybe you could reach out to him or his staff to just clarify that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Vice Chair Miller. So all I can tell you is, well, first of all, Anthony, you said that everything eloquently. this isn't a competition between Bakersfield and Fresno, although most other things are. But at any rate, from the first day I've was fortunate enough to join this board very early on. The station is the rebirth of downtown Fresno. It was always conceived that way, believed to be that way by now 3 or 4 mayors. It is the focal point of the growth and revitalization of downtown. The economic implications are astounding. I would also be very pleased to hear that there's going to be a lot of local input with the administration as well as the people. This is viewed as being clearly the place to be, which has been something that hasn't been in Fresno for over half a century. So it is a hope, it's a belief, it is a revitalization, it's a redirection of economic development in our state as a whole. And it's amazing for those people who aren't, having an opportunity to be up and down the valley as Anthony and I are, and Henry. You cannot believe how anxious and anticipatory the people in the valley are for this to happen. Their biggest fear is it won't happen. And the thing that I think has become clear, as Brian said, with certainly late last year, there's less concern about it not happening. The concern is how fast can we make it happen? Because people have been waiting for a long time. And as people commonly say in the Central Valley, all they want, we are up here representing the entire state. They just want a place at the table. And high-speed rail is the place at the table for Merced, Bakersfield, Kings, Tulare County, and Fresno. So keep up the good work. We are all very proud of you and your team and management for what you're doing with this. Keep the local communities involved and engaged in this so that when you start drawing, we have people sitting around the table cheering and not questioning. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think anybody on the board has any other comments. Thank you, Meg. I mean, any other comments during board comments? Any board comments today? Well done. No, I'm sorry, Meg. I apologize. I would thank you very much. You can go show us some stuff now. Okay. We're now going to turn to our next agenda item, which is the train interior design. And we have Meg, I'm sorry, we have Melissa Figueroa and we have Mr. Almstead, our train ops guy. So Melissa, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, board members, for the time. I understand you've been sitting for quite a while. We will try and keep this brief. I want to echo and begin by echoing something that Director Williams started with about the privilege of working on this. This effort that we've been working on with Director Cederoth's team and with our early train operator has been a tremendous privilege for our communication staff. Being able to tap on our own personal experiences, our own cultural backgrounds, and then talk to folks around the state about what they want in the insides of their trains has been a wonderful, very eye-opening process. And we all feel very lucky to be working on this project that's going to be seen for generations. So I thank you to my communications team for leaning in on this very heavily. So this first slide is a timeline we presented to you last year with the kickoff of this effort in early 2023 about the work that we're doing to engage communities and key stakeholders to create this very unique, very California-centric, very iconic train for the first high-speed rail system in the United States. It has been a very detailed process, and we have taken in more than 400 individuals to this mock-up you see behind you and in other formats to get their feedback, and that process is ongoing. This will lead into a competitive procurement process, which Bruce will elaborate on in just a few moments. And then it will lead into, of course, the development and production and testing of the trains, and then revenue service by 2030 to 2033, as you all know. Next slide. So this public engagement has involved a tremendous amount of research, tapping on what is already in existence globally, what is in existence here in the US, and improving upon that, taking lessons learned from the ADA community, from our multilingual communities, from stakeholders up and down the state in rail and operations, and everyday consumers from the smallest children through college-age kids. We've talked to them all, and we continue to do that as we develop this process. That led to some early first concepts in layout and design, which you can take a closer look behind me. And they're also all on our social media platforms. Got to put a plug in there for that. We have taken this through some VR simulation, which has been very popular in public settings. We do farmers markets, we do community meetings. We've done many, many visits here with that. Lots of work with our VR, and that is in multiple parts of our state. Our staff is all trained on that technology and is using that at public events. That feedback led to the white mock-ups that you see behind you. And that is what we have brought folks through to continue to test and to refine the design into our renderings, which have been updated, and we'll show you in just a few seconds. This will all lead into the final design requirements for the design handbook that's going to the 2 bidders for our train sets, and Bruce can talk a little bit about that as well. Next slide. So of course, this began research and benchmarking, ideation workshops with a number of staff, our own staff included. They enjoyed that quite a bit, regional rail and transit partners. And then we did some ride-alongs with folks from the ADA community to understand better what their needs were for trains. If you've ridden rail in California or in other parts of the globe, you know that there are some limitations to what folks who have mobility impairment can and can't do on a train. That is not what we are endeavoring to do here with our trains. When we walk you through them, you'll see with greater detail, but our goal is to be able to have anyone with a mobility device be able to go from end to end on our train seamlessly without interruption, be able to sit in multiple places of our trains. The restrooms are all ADA accessible, not just one restroom for the whole train, but one per train car. Lots of amenities on our trains for folks with mobility and sight impairments. Next slide. This is a quick example of some of the first sketches that we did if you haven't seen them yet, and then the more refined designs. And then some examples of the public engagement we have done. The feedback has been tremendous. We continue to get feedback on social media anytime we post an image or a rendering. Lots of comments and questions. We hope we're getting to all of them. We're trying our best, and then of course that will continue. We did some focus groups in multiple languages last week, and we're still gathering the feedback on that as well. Next slide. So here is a little bit more of a refined design. You can see how the images went from very basic to now much more detailed, and with the feedback that we've gotten through the mock-ups of the trains behind you and then some of the images that we released prior, you can see how the design has been refined and added to. We brought folks from the FRA through. They provided some great safety components that we've incorporated into the design, and ADA accessibility items as well have been incorporated and enhanced. Next slide. We have some images that you're going to see here, and then you're going to see in person right behind you. The family area has been a very popular point. We have a number of families, obviously, in the state of California and beyond, and we expect that they're going to be riding our trains, and we don't want families, especially parents of young children, to be confined to just one spot. We want them to be able to move around the train and feel welcome and encouraged to do so. So this family area concept that you will walk through has been a very popular discussion point. It also serves multiple purposes because our train is going to go nearly 500 miles. We will likely be transporting large groups of students or large groups of patrons for sporting events and other major events. This will also allow us to have group gathering areas for all ages. As I mentioned, we brought through a number of college students who have found just as much enjoyment on that slide as some of our toddlers. That's very entertaining. The restroom has tremendous ADA accessibility and also things like a changing table, which I know is very popular for our parents. So we'll walk you through that as well. Multiple seating options, which will also bring forward opportunities for different price points and capacity. We have a very modular train, so as capacity increases over the years, you'll be able to redesign and reconfigure the insides of the train cars as well. So you'll see some options for flex seating, which we welcome your feedback on as well. Next slide. Some of the feedback, I thought it was necessary for the public and for all of you to hear some of the things that we've been hearing from folks as we brought them through. So this slide talks a little bit about what folks have said. Well, we brought them through this workspace, which we found very encouraging. Next slide. Some of the groups that we have been working with, very high level, of course, this is not encapsulating all of them. The California State Transportation Agency, including Secretary Omashakin, came through with his executive staff to provide thoughts and feedback. The Federal Railroad Administration, including Administrator Bose, have been out more than once, and we continue to work with them on design of the insides of the trains. Obviously, our authority management and various groups within our organization have come through, all very excited. Disability rights advocates, I've mentioned them a few times, a number of conversations there in person, ride-alongs, virtual, and then our state agencies and stakeholders. We brought through the agencies and department leads that have the highest touch points with our project. Air Resources Board, the Secretary of Natural Resources, Caltrans, the Highway Patrol brought their entire commissioner staff. They've all come through. They've all provided thoughts and guidance, not only on the mock-ups of the train sets, but they also did a walkthrough with Director Cederoth of the station sites as well. And then a number of student groups. Next slide. This takes you through a little bit of the evolution of the sketches, which I always find to be fascinating, just such talent in our design team. So the first sketch is, you can see, very basic. This is showing what's called a cocoon seat. And I look forward to your feedback on that. We have some staff on my team who have already said that that will be their permanent seat, so we'll have to fight them on that. A very unique experience for our trains, providing some options for more quiet space, which we've heard from folks like nursing mothers and individuals in the neurodivergent community have been very important components to a train ride for us. So that's a look at how that cocoon seating has evolved over feedback time. And the next slide. All right, now I'll turn it over to Bruce for the very technical RFP discussion.
And now that we've done all this work, the design handbook is going to inform our train set interior designs. We're going to work very closely with our train set manufacturers. We have had both of the shortlisted firms here. We hosted them separately, of course, within our one-on-ones. We have had them go through and got their feedback on our process for interior designs. Next slide, please. To summarize what you've heard, designed by Californians for Californians. It's a community-driven, expert-led, test and iterate and repeat. And we've gone through an inclusive design that welcomes everyone and the best option for our trip, for every trip length and travel purpose. This process is getting a lot of attention from different railroad properties around the country. So we've gotten a lot of questions about our process, and we expect what we're doing here to inform interior designs, not only for properties here in the state of California, but throughout the country. And with that, we would like to answer any questions you might have. It's late, short and sweet.
Okay.
You guys been here a while.
Any questions for Meg or Bruce? All right, we don't see him. All I would say is that the key to this project also, as we know up here, and while it's great to see it materializing in Central California, but all of you also know, the key to the project is Northern and Southern California. It's connecting 85% of the population of this state with a transformational surface transportation system that makes headway in our economic and our environmental concerns about the state, the real concerns, but moving 85% of the people of this state along with the people visiting on this transformational system of surface transportation that accomplishes all those things in the economic impact of that is equally strong in both North and Southern California. So we're certainly far away from the beginning, but we're still a long way from the end. With that, is there any other comments from board members on anything today? We're going to listen. Thanks for joining us for our field trip today. It's probably the most, we've never had a field trip before, so please, if you haven't looked at all of this, please take a look, and we are excited to take a look, even though, well, these people, by the way, just so you don't think they were rude, they all came yesterday, so they've already seen this. But for us, this has been a great day, and thank you all.
Mr. Chair, I would just
Yeah.
to
Oh, I'm
add,
sorry.
add to your comments. One, it doesn't just, I was just thinking, it doesn't just transform our state, it'll transform the whole country, which is why we deserve a really strong federal partner too. But I just wanted to thank the high-speed rail board staff. I know a lot went into getting us here and setting this up. So thank you very, very much. I know on behalf of the whole board. Yeah.
Thank you, Emily. With that, ladies and gentlemen, the meeting is adjourned other than our field trip. Thank you very much. We'll see you in a couple months.
Hi everyone, I'm Jérôme Chabot. I am with Neomine Design Studio. We're partnered with Navy Eco North America. And what you see behind me is a white mock-up of the future California high-speed rail train sets. Here you will see some examples of the concepts and the amenities and a lot of cool things that we have put together to test to get the best design for this future interior. Let me tell you what it is about, and come with me. Alright, so this is the family area. This area here is more of something of a playground kind of area. But a cool gimmick here is on this side you have more like the Pacific Ocean side, with the lifeguard tower and the little den, and you have the waves and the surfboards. On this side you have the mountains, the national park, where you have this little climbing kind of upholstery. And what we hope here to do is to bring all Californians together. So this is all about there is to know about the family area. This is an amenity that we really want to offer for the future train interiors. And let's move on to the next module. Something I'd like to talk about are the restrooms. Why is this so big? Obviously to be inclusive and have all these features, but also because we can. We're requiring a wide body for the train, so we can have a very nice passenger flow in the corridor and still have a lot of space inside the restrooms. All the restrooms in the train sets are going to be inclusive, fully accessible for ADA passengers. I guess you have a good idea of how inclusive this restroom will be and how inclusive this train set will be. Now let's go to the seating area. What I will start by talking about the EcoFlex kind of seating. It's a very high density seating concept. It is similar to an airline, but it is better. We're wider in terms of width. We have more leg room, and it's not that we want to put this seat everywhere in the train set or make a whole coach full of it. It's a 3x2. It's very compact, but the idea and is also to have flexible elements. And here, for example, the backrest of that seat could fold down. We have like a nice armrest, cup holder, tables that will deploy to us and have like a working table. It's also then, it becomes then a seating area that business passengers on a way to a business meeting can have a nice chat and travel in a cost-efficient way. So now I want to talk to you about the cocoon seat. The cocoon seat is an out-of-the-box idea. Everything will be full of upholstery, and we can enjoy a movie, and we have our own space. A curtain could go down here, not fully, but give us like this nice cocoon feeling, privacy. It will be like comparable to a business kind of sitting, a comfort, very high comfort kind of sitting, without having the need to work necessarily, but more just to relax and unwind and be entertained. This is the comfort seat. The comfort seat compared to the Eco Flex would be more present in the whole layout of the train set. We have a footrest here, and when we reclined, and we have also this wider working table, so someone with a laptop will have no problem working here. And this seat will be also, or that kind of seating will be also integrated in compartments, so that people on a business trip on their own or with colleagues will have full privacy during their activity while traveling. The last one is the premium seat. The premium seat is what we want to bring also in this train to say, hey, not only airlines can have a really cool seat, a very comfort, premium kind of sitting. We can bring that in a high-speed train as well. And so this one is, you know, even wider. It will give you a lot of features. You can put your sideboard next to you, and you can also adjust your level of privacy you want to have. So that is all about all the seats we are working on right now. And what you see right now is what we hope to implement in the future. I hope you liked it, and see you soon with more cool stuff.